So yeah, who are you? What's your what's your rundown?
Okay, so I'm Jordan Walls, also known as Wally. I am 22 years of age from Detroit, Michigan. Graduated from Cass Technical High School. Man, I'm currently a senior at Morehouse College. Graduated in May 2025 with my bachelor's in science of sociology with the minor in cultural studies and art history. I'm a photographer. I'm a fashion designer. Um, I'm a curator, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm gonna try to hit on all of those and try to remember. Uh, but you mentioned like being like Morehouse senior. What like describe that a little bit, like that like experience from as like a black student at a historically black college, that sort of thing.
Being a senior at Morehouse is more of a feeling of, I think it's pressure of being a black man and going to such a great institution to make a contribution to society, an impactful one. Of course, we have alum of the sorts of Martin Luther King and Spike Lee and Samuel L. Jackson and Raphael Warnock, so many people in so many different arenas. So right now, I would just say anticipation of what's next and what way I can make an impact in my personalized field and lane. But it's an exciting time. Um, about to cross over to be in such great conversation with great black men. So I'm excited. Just anticipating the future.
No, that's real. That's you said a lot there. So like basically you have like a lot to look up to as like a student in terms of like what you do after you graduate. It's like
Yeah,
it's a high ceiling there.
yeah.
How would you for like you as an individual, how would you describe your creation style in terms of like and what's like unique about it to you?
So my curation of just art or just any genre.
Any genre, yeah.
Um,
And also if so if it wasn't art, what else like could it be?
mm, so on a very basis level, curation can be anything. You
That's
can curate
understood.
what you wear. You can curate a playlist. You can curate a car selection. So I think it's just intentionally piecing things together that wouldn't have been done without your ability. I would say just my practice is being personable. I feel like art can be very exclusive and such a form of hierarchy, and I try to be as relatable as possible and honest to myself because I feel like it's so many avenues you can go with being a quote unquote artist or a curator. You can be very high class, you can be very grassroots and local, you can profit off it and make millions at institutions like Christie's and Sotheby's, or you could locally sell in your community, and it's just so many ways you can go with it. So I try to cultivate a mixture of everything in different aspects, and again, just very personable to who I am as a black male from Detroit who's 20 and in his 20s in 2025. So
Yeah. Honest.
yeah,
So like when I was going through like Instagram, what I saw was like raw. That's like if like curation is like the intent, like the style that I saw was like raw. And I think sometimes people say raw and it's like um I don't know, like streetwear, you know, you get like raw, like edgy.
yeah,
I mean it in the sense of like what I have like the start of something. Like so like that honest personable like kind of what you were describing in terms of the intent of the style. That's kind of what I got to see is like raw, just like
yeah,
this is where it is right now, and like you can see that there's like an intent to take it further. Just why I was like I wanted to like talk to you, see
yeah,
like where like your head was at, because it doesn't just seem like again like people usually say raw. It's like oh you just you saw how you felt and you just wrote it down and you just
yeah,
do something up there like to get like some type of like intent, because something is like trendy. It seems like I mean raw. I mean like honest the start of something. This is like, there's intent to take it further. So
Yeah. Well, to even speak on that, I would say that comes from. So, with being a sociology student, I learned that we associate ourselves with things and categorize ourselves with things to make us feel heard and seen. And going through life, I made a lot of different changes. I went to a lot of schools, lived in a bunch of places. So I kind of always had that yearning of connecting to one specific thing. And I think pre-college, it ended up being football, and it kind of took over my identity. But in all honesty, I was never that good, or like
yeah,
it was just a aesthetic or like a identity that I could portray being a black male in high school. So post that, like just COVID and then not playing in college, and that just kind of like flatlining instantly. I was kind of faced with a reality of who I really am and what does that mean. So I would say with that, I had to portray that just with my interests and likes and what I don't like, what I do like. I don't know, but I get what you're saying. And very in a non-perfectionism type way, because I feel like even with that, like with football, if I was going to wait to be perfect, I would have been waiting forever. And I feel like perfectionism stunts a lot of people's growth because they are waiting for the right moment, which is really doesn't exist. So, yeah.
Yeah, you get perfect by being imperfect.
Yeah.
Over and over, and then you
For
kind
sure.
of reach like what you're going for.
Yeah.
Do you think like growing up in Detroit also kind of like played into the just like rawness, honesty? I feel like Detroit is, one, like not being too far from the city, like living near the city, and also just the general like the way that it's viewed, right? Like when people think of Detroit, they think of like a real grit. Like grit is like the Lions,
Yeah.
honesty, just going for it. Like, do you think any of that played into your personality?
I think it played a part, but not in the way that you're thinking. So I think it played a part because I never fit what my environment was. So I had no choice but to be honest, right? So I grew up in church. Like I'm a church kid. My whole family is in church. But the neighborhoods that I grew up in were very, very gritty and very grimy. And it was really no duality to be both in a sense. In grand scheme, it is, like, I feel like it is duality, but people could always see it. Like they knew that even if I tried to portray that, it wasn't that. So it's like, I then found my identity in things that wasn't harmful to or like I wasn't trying to be something. So for example, like, all right, guns in a grand scheme, right?
Yeah.
Growing up,
not incriminating.
right? Like a great accessory for photos or a great aesthetic for a bunch of people, but that was something that I was never like. It just wasn't a possibility for me to be on Instagram with a gun, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, this can't fit me, and this is not who I am. But these Balenciagas that I've been wanting for years may be that. That may be my gun and my photo to give me that like identity builder, if that makes sense.
No, that makes complete sense. Yeah. And like, the people around you wouldn't even have like let you get away with that because they like, bro, that's not you.
Exactly. And granted, that's what I was around, and very much so. But it was also like the city was so bad that like it would have tested my card of like who I actually am. So I had to become who I really was quick, or it wouldn't have been a good route.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, we won't like stay on it too long, but like we just say, like football was like the outlet at the time, and that's why you like drove also like deep into football being it.
Yeah, for sure. And not even saying it was a cover up, but it was something to identify with.
Yeah.
That was like popular culture.
Mhm.
Because back then, like, so interesting seeing how many people are tapping into just their creative side and being artistic. But that wasn't really,
Yeah.
that wasn't really the coolest thing to do, and let alone 2019, but 2016, 2017. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And so you said like you go from like identifying with football, and then you go to Morehouse, and you have to like you figure out you go to college, and you figure out that like
'cause I went to Pine Bluff before
Yeah.
Morehouse. So I would say even being in Pine Bluff, that was such like a blanking on the term, culture shock
yeah,
for me, because now I'm in a space where Southern lifestyle is just who people are. So like being in Arkansas, people carrying guns is not in a chauvinistic way, but it's just Southern lifestyle. And
Yeah.
not even a harmful way.
Mm.
So like now it's another culture I have to adjust to that isn't really me, you know?
Mhm.
Like usually when you see a gun, you're threatened by the possibility of what it could do. But being in the South is like it could be probably the less harmful thing, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like it's so much of their culture. So like, I ain't got cookies and gun references. I don't know where this is coming from, but the way of lifestyle was so slow and so natural. I was in a town where it was one McDonald's, one Walmart, 2 gas stations, and everybody knew each other. So I stuck out there too, being from Detroit and being from the city. So I guess then I know we, for lack of better terms, rebrand,
Mhm.
but I think the rebrand was really purposefully finding out who I am. Because I feel like before college, people kind of told me, like, all right, that's not you, or all right, that is you. And I kind of just went with the flow.
Mhm.
But being in a town with maybe 2,000 people, I really intentionally tried to figure out who I was.
right.
Yeah.
That makes complete sense. And so like going to Morehouse, what do you think like your current like football is, like what football was back then for you as like something to identify with, and maybe like a cover. Maybe you like, don't have a cover anymore, but what do you think you are like moving it honestly now?
So I came home from Pine Bluff that spring semester. I didn't go back in hopes to transfer to a bigger school. And then my cousin Sam, he has a studio in Detroit, and he taught me how to use a camera, taught me how to use lights and set up stuff. So it's like, oh, I'm not the football guy, I'm the camera guy.
Mhm.
So I took on that whole persona and went through the motions with that. Was shooting stuff that wasn't really me, but it was making me money
Mhm.
because I was never really profiting off football. So I feel like this was like the better alternative. At least I'm getting paid.
Right.
So yeah, I kind of went down to Morehouse with that mindset, and then it took me a while, but I found out that I could create my own lane and really dove into my personal interests. So yeah.
Mhm. And so now with curation, is photography still like wrapped into that?
Yes, but no.
Mhm.
I think I use my skills in photography to a means to execute a vision that only I can see sometimes,
Mhm.
or just using a skill that I wouldn't have to outsource from somebody else.
Just heavy on that. Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that's the main part of just photography, because it wasn't my bread and butter for a long time. But yeah.
Next with it is, how'd you get interested in art? And I know you just said that like you came home and like your family, like your cousin put you onto it, and like started showing you like how to use a camera and things like that, and you started like trying to like making money off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Were there like points earlier than that like kind of became interested in art or like it turned you into it? Because you know, you still have to like have an eye for it, especially if you're like making money off of it. So at some point, like those abilities would, I would think, like show up earlier,
Yeah.
just be in the back of your mind.
So I never considered photography as art.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I first started, like I thought I was just taking pictures. I thought of being a photographer was like the least coolest thing. Like I thought about 60-year-old white men taking pictures of birds in the park.
Yeah.
That's photography. So I didn't really see it as an art medium. But growing up, I was surrounded by art. I was just having a conversation with my aunt about curation. We learn about art in such a westernized way of like, only thing that is art is Mona Lisa and Starry Night and the things that's in the Louvre. But like, I can walk in any black home in the Midwest. I'm sure there are 2 to 3 pieces of art on their wall, whether it be like Ernie Barnes and Shake Shack or a photo of Black Jesus. You know,
Yeah.
I feel like that's art at its highest. So I subconsciously grew up around art my whole life, but never really recognizing it as art because I guess we're just so taught that if a white man isn't painting it, that it's not deemed, have value.
Yeah.
So yeah, my grandmother, I would say she's probably the first curator I know. Like the way her home was laid out, and the images she chose to put up, and she framed everybody's portraits and had them on the wall, and very, very, very detailed. So I would say that's probably one of the first. And then she also drew too, and I didn't even recognize that was art. I was like, oh man, my grandma's just drawing, So I'll say that's an introduction. And then even field trips to the DIA. It's so interesting with art, and then learning about it through a black lens at Morehouse. It's like a certain type of connection. Because growing up going to the DIA, I vaguely remember those field trips, but I do remember like a big Kehinde Wiley piece of like a guy on a horse with some Timbs on.
A shirt. I'm gonna
Yeah,
say my.
for sure. So it's like, I always been around it and I always enjoyed it. I just couldn't label it as that because I didn't know it was that.
Yeah. No, it makes like complete sense. It's just like around you. And you think that like still carries into the way you. Because I think that, so this is kind of eventually like where I'm getting at. Like you can be black and make art, and then like that's black art, or you're like a black artist. But then there's a difference if you are black and are intentionally making art for black people. Like it's like 2 different things. And you can, I mean, it's really like, you listen to anyone's like song, you see like their painting, drawing, like pictures, whatever it is, you can tell which of the 2 they're going for. If they're just like black and I'm black and I take pictures and then that's black art, or if I'm black and I like am trying to make something that would like connect with black people. And when I looked through, some of, when I was like, doing my research and stuff like that, I saw like the intent. So do you think that like, and I guess, so that's like the layout, but like, do you think that some of like you said, like family was first curation, like things that you saw around your home, things that we don't really like think about as having that same like intention? Do you think you pull from that as well? I don't know if you kind of just said that, but just like grandma, things that are just closer to home in the intent. Some of like those earlier experiences.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying for sure. I think I do. I think we subconsciously grew up around all the tools we need. It just hasn't been labeled yet. I think even me going to school and learning about art, like I just needed that label to like what it is and what was going on. For example, I even think me moving so well at a HBCU around black people, and I always was like, this doesn't feel like my first time in this space. Granted, growing up in the blackest city in America, I could also attribute it to that. But even growing up in Detroit, it didn't feel like an HBCU. And I think it's like, man, for me, I think it connected one day because I grew up in a black church. Like my mom's an elder and my like uncle's a pastor. So it all like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Yeah.
I think of black people in such a positive life because I seen black people do so much like productive things. So I think it translated with my art as well because like I think it's so simplified right now of to what the message I'm trying to convey, but I think it's because I love us so much. So like a simple portrait can mean more than a 4-hour photo shoot with PAs and lighting assistants and you know, just because of I just love I've grown to love what that simple image can be. But I think it's because I have I don't know how to explain it, but simple connection because I've always been around it subconsciously. So yeah. Because it doesn't really feel like intent. So like when I do, I can't say that I say the only time it's intent is when, but even then, so like if I'm at a Morehouse graduation, I'm taking photos. It doesn't feel like intent because like I would have been here anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm just capturing what I see, you know? And I just feel so comfortable. And I find so much beauty in these images. So it's like, although it could be simple, like, oh, you're there anyway, and like you can go out your way to get the shot, but it's also like, I just see this as so beautiful and simplistic that it seems like it's intent, if that makes sense.
No, it makes complete sense. Yeah, you're like where you're supposed to be. You're just doing what you enjoy doing. So it's like, and that makes art. But like, there isn't like, okay, I'm gonna go out and do this. You're just walking in your path.
For sure.
So like, I think that also goes back to like the like rawness, honesty side of it. But to talking about like I guess your perspective on art, like we can all look at like the same house, but like each one of us will kind of go to take a different type of picture of it, right? If we had free range to do whatever, we all kind of have a different approach to it.
Yeah.
And so talking about your curation style, like how do you think, or the way you view things artistically, do you think any of that is like missing in like art now? Or do you think that there are people who are like pulling out elements of it, things that you identify with, and that you like want to see done more often or anything like that? You just...
That's a great question. I have a lot of answers to that. I think perfectionism is killing creativity right now. I think because we've never seen it on such a scale that everybody's trying to get it perfect. I love Virgil to death, and I know he's like one of the biggest reference of like just artistic practice for Black people the past few years. But I think with him showing the behind the scenes of like what he did and like how he made stuff and the impact that it had, that everybody's trying to perfect it and show that they're perfecting it. But it's like, I don't know, a lot of people aren't honest. Honest with making art. I don't think a lot of people are honest in their practices, and a lot of people are looking for that perfection look. You know what I'm saying? But you can't really be something that you're not.
Right.
So it's like, even for me, I think with the t-shirts I make, I think they're a part of my art practice too, because they're so niche to a certain group. So like the first shirt I dropped was titled Algeria, and the design was based upon the 1996 Nigerian Super Eagles soccer team, and they won gold in Atlanta. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever, because like I was watching David Beckham documentary, and I was like, all right, I'm obsessed with soccer for 4 weeks now. So like, let me do all my soccer research. And I was like, man, it's a lot of European people and a lot of people from Hispanic descent, but it's like, has to be some Black people that like dominated in this culture. And then the Nigerian Super Eagles did, and they won in Atlanta, and I live in Atlanta. So I just thought it was the coolest thing. So it's like, that concept is not for the masses. That's okay. and that concept is not perfected.
Mm.
Like I didn't get the licensing for it. I didn't ask anybody permission. I'm not Nigerian, you know. But it's like if I did all those checklists to make a perfect product, the art wouldn't have been the same, or it wouldn't have had the same impact. And
Right.
even with like the second one I did, it was called Wall House. So like a spin on my last name, Walls, and then Morehouse, and swim team. So it's like Morehouse doesn't even have a swim team at all. And then it's like the stereotype of like black people can't swim, you know.
Yeah.
And then like I'm wearing this stuff on campus, everybody is, but like, I didn't ask permission to get licensing, or like I didn't, because we saw like, oh man, is this touchy subject that black people can't swim, you know? Like, so I think people are just looking for perfectionism where there, I mean, there, I won't say there isn't any, but like, I think I know people don't realize it's a journey. So like Virgil documented his last 3 years at CD Louis Vuitton. The other 20 wasn't publicized. So like now people are thinking it happens in 3 years, or it happens this way, or I only dropped 2 shirts, but let me hire a team of CDs and designers and let me do all this because I seen him do it. It's like that might not be your journey or your route.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Mm.
So yeah.
Makes so really like overthinking.
Yeah.
That's just like no particular like perspective on the art, just like how you're putting out the art, like overthinking it. Yeah, I think it's that's very true, and I think there's like outside pressures that go along with that. Because even like you're saying, like you mentioned, like doing Nigerian soccer team, but then you're not Nigerian. That's like more of like a societal, political like issue that you're thinking about. So you're thinking about that. There's and even like yeah.
Because I think one of the posts from my drops for the Wall House thing, I was in New York, in Brooklyn, and there was this guy in like an African garment shop, and like I took pictures of him. The shirts are there, and I was just talking to him. I think I captioned it. I could have been from Senegal because that's where the guy was, and it was like,
oh, you captioned it. Okay.
Yeah, but it was like. So back to the political thing, like even me being black is like a construct that was forced upon me.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I don't know what's the word for, not foreshadowing, but I don't know if it's post shadowing.
Yeah.
But even for the like Jerry T-shirt, like I chose to speak on there, like I could have been from anywhere.
Yeah.
Or like my ancestry line could be from, we don't know. So it's like I can't worry about the judgment of outside sources, and you know, especially people that don't really care.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's give outside forces, people who don't really care. I think that's most of it is like you'll overthink something and try to see it from all these different perspectives, but no one really is like thinking like, you know what I mean?
Right. And I think that's the thing too. Like, I think this is something that needs to be studied. We have this construct of a fake audience.
Yeah.
Like, when I'm creating, there's 1 million people that's going to see this and have an opinion about it. And not nobody cares in like a bad way, but it's like people don't know what they want from you or their artistic practice. People are just going to see it on their timeline. Either they're going to engage with it, support it, or not. You know what I'm saying? So it's like even creating with thinking you have all these eyes on you can make you like create in a very shelled and boxed in way.
Yeah. It's just limiting you for no like
No
you overthinking it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Just do that. So you mentioned the t-shirts. So far we talked about like photography, the t-shirts. What was the process for like creating the t-shirts? Did you work with the screen printer? Or were they screen printed? I know you designed them. You said you mentioned like how you found out about like the concept. So walk through like that process. Those shirts are like fly.
So I don't know if we have a portion about inspiration or my inspiration, but I'm really inspired by like just the streetwear like world and stratosphere, and that it's not that old. So when I want to see my career go in the way that these other figureheads have went, I've seen everybody has had a hand-on process in what they're doing. So I learned how to screen print 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, so like I'm really hands on in every product that's put out. It's me and one of my best friends, Ron, that's in Atlanta. He's graduated from Clark. Well, he just graduated, but he walks in May. And he screen printed all of my drops, like anything I've dropped so far. And then I had a brand and like a collective called Providence before I started dropping shirts under me. We hand printed those as well. So it is screen printed, silk screen, and if it's not me, it's somebody really close to me. And we do all the designs and sourcing for the t-shirts and whatnot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fire. That's screen printing is such a it's like I would think of it like as an intimate process. You know what I mean? Like, because you have to like all the different aspects of other art forms. You gotta like do within screen printing. Like if you gotta design it. You gotta burn the screen. And it's like a chemical process there. You have to go hands on. You gotta really put in like the work to like do it. And even choosing like the colors. Like, do you mix the paint? Do you just like go with like a stock green, or do you go with like a green that you mix? It's like.
So my homie Ron, he mixes paint, but I'm gonna be honest too. Like, this is a factor that people aren't honest about. Like, when I do these projects, I have no budget at all. So like, I may take some money from a shoot to produce the t-shirts or X, Y, and Z. So like, even I think a big part of my practice is creating with being resourceful. So like, most of the drops I've done have been one color print, and that's not for like aesthetic or just because I envisioned it, but like I'm saving on money or like, you know what I'm saying? How can I get this point across with one color, no back design or like just front, you know what I'm saying? So how can I use my creativity with just Photoshop and burning the screen with one color? And I think it is a very intimate process, and even that, like, why am I using a manufacturer? And not like it's nothing wrong with getting your stuff from overseas and having it done, but it's like, is this a cash grab, or do I really care about the process of what I'm putting out? Like, does this truly mean something to me? And I think it does, and I think that's why some of my stuff is so personable, because it's really me. So like, it's really me doing the designing. It's really me brainstorming the idea. Like, I'm picking up the screen, dropping off the screen. Like, it's like, So, and I have a lot of fun doing it. Like, I think it's one of my favorite art forms, and I'm glad that I still have a chance to do it.
Are there, photography, screen printing, is there like another medium?
I DJ as well. Sure, like everybody goes down that pipeline, but I really have fun DJing. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think. I'm sure as we talk more, it probably just comes on naturally. But
and getting towards like the end, but like, do you have a dream role in the art space? Like, I know you mentioned you had a brand, and you also like Algeria. That's not a brand; it's like a one-off, right? But like, do you have a desire to create a brand, or is the role like, I want to work with the brand? Because you're kind of like curate the space. When I hear that, I think of like someone had a thing, and then you said, this is how we should put the thing, that people would like that for what you're going for. But you have like made the thing. Like, you make the shirt, that is like that is the thing that, like, you know what I'm saying? So you're kind of like on both sides of it. So is it like to have a brand and like build things out, or to work with someone?
I don't really have a desire to have a brand, because I think even the consistency of like having to deliver, which isn't a bad weight, but it is also like people now have an opinion, or people now have a say so. Like, even I know we use this term a lot, but falling off. Like, you can't fall off if you're making something for you. Because it was never for you guys. You guys just chose to support it, which is greatly appreciated. But like with the brand, you kind of have an expectation to live up to keep making these great things. Like for me, I like the versatility of dropping whenever, whatever. Like no brand identity, or it's just my thoughts on a T-shirt that comes out periodically, or like So I would love to work with a brand at some point, just to see how I can change a space and make it me. Yeah. I'm trying to think of so like even the CD roll, which doesn't really exist, that everybody is trying to make it exist.
Creative director.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, it's kind of it's used so much that it's kind of like an empty term.
It doesn't so the first creative director in streetwear was Angelo, that's at Awake New York now, which is one of my mentors. And then he's the first CD in streetwear history. Like that term didn't really exist. And I think a lot of people don't really know what that term means. So I think more of a brand director is probably be a good role for me, and just seeing how I could steer somebody's identity to be more accessible and to progress it in a way that's me, as in Jordan. So. Yeah. But even in the art space, I would love to curate for a major institution or be a museum director at a major institution. So really those two roles. And down the line, have my own space in both art and fashion.
Oh, you said a couple of gems there. The one about once you make a brand, there is that pressure, and then you also have it's really just like social media, or also I think it goes back to somewhat being in your own head and overthinking it. You think that you're a million people saw this, but no, 200 people and only
which
10 of them really remember it. Exactly.
Because now we are even looking as 200 people in the mere fact that that's a small amount. Imagine if we had 200 people in this room right now.
Yeah.
That pressure alone would be a lot. So, it's this false notion that you have to be something that you don't,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But once you create that brand, there's you feel that pressure that goes along with it, but having I don't know if it's exactly anonymity, but just saying I am the brand.
Yeah.
and it's just kind of implied. People
Most
pick up on that. So
for sure. I think that's why I started my first few drops with my name in the shirt somehow, so Wall Jewelry or Wall House, just so you would know that this is associated with me. But it's Wall, I am Wall, literally it's in my name. So it's yeah.
What are lessons that you've learned since being in the I'm using quote unquote soft camera, but art space, right?
Yeah.
If you mentioned working with people from Awake New York, and also moving through Morehouse and making different projects, which is a well-known institution of learning, right? There's a lot that comes along with being at Morehouse, and then also going further and saying you're working on projects at Morehouse. So what do you think you've learned through putting yourself out there and working with in these spaces?
I would say never get comfortable, because I feel once you achieve certain things that may have been in your journal or on your vision board, it's easy to get stagnant and very complacent. So I would say never get comfortable and just show up. I think the art of showing up and being present, because social media is now everything, right? So a lot of people don't physically show up, but a lot of these opportunities that I've been granted by God has been from showing up. Even in New York, a lot of these people that I've met are outside their store. So talking to a Tremaine Emery, he's outside on Spring Street, outside Devon Tears, or Angelo is sitting on the bench outside of Awake, New York. So it's a lot of people feel Instagram is their biggest tool, but it's if you have the opportunity to go see some stuff and meet these people, do that. And also say networking. I've been seeing this a lot. I think Issa Rae said it, and a few other creative of like networking horizontally.
Mhm.
Just building those connections, because like I think not even trying to shoot for the top, which is not a bad thing, but you discredit the journey of like learning and gradually learning, because you gradually have to get to some places. So yeah, I would say that. I would say that for sure.
Was there anything else that you had in mind that we talked about? I know I said that before, but make sure everything is in context.
Really?
Straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't think of like just anything off the top. Is there anything you want to circle back on? Or you feel like I gave you want to clarify or a clear answer?
No, I think we're good. I think it was all it followed like a through line.
Okay,
So,
cool.
message and like perspective there.
Yeah,
It was cool.
for sure.
Yeah.